Thank you, Tom. Well, good evening and welcome members, officers and those members of the public here at the meeting and those joining us virtually. Item 1 on our agenda is apologies for absence.
Chair, we've had apologies from Councillor Bark, Councillor Annie Brenton, Councillor David Brenton, Councillor Lauren Bright and Councillor Haynes.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is to receive and approve the council minutes of the 8th of April and the extraordinary meeting on the 15th of July. So I'll start with the 8th of April, which starts on page 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Someone like to move them as Chair? Thank you. Okay, it's been proposed and seconded.
Who was the second? Sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
All in favour, please show. And against? And abstentions?
25 for and 5 abstentions.
Thank you. And next we go on to the meeting on the 15th of July, which starts on page 13, 14, 15, 16.
Chair.
Councillor Pennington.
Yes, I wasn't at the meeting, but I did write to the meeting explaining that I had an interest in the X-Links, and it was on YouTube, but it's not mentioned in the minutes, and I would like it recorded because I think Chief Exec actually read some information that I sent in mail in preparation for that meeting. And I asked Tom to check that today by email as well. I think you probably have checked it, Tom, actually.
Haven't been able to yet.
So I did, yeah, so I did write to this meeting. I would like it recorded that I actually, that personal interest was declared at the meeting. Thank you very much.
So
I'll just bring Stacey in here because I believe she responded to that.
Councillor Pennington wrote to me before the meeting to say that he had an interest in the X-Links matter, but because he wasn't at the meeting, it isn't necessary to do a declaration. But I did raise that declaration at the point where we were looking at the X-Links committee, Councillor Pennington. So I don't think the minutes are inaccurate. I didn't read out the declaration because it's not necessary because you weren't here, but did flag it for the X-Links part of the agenda.
Are you happy to note, Chair? And
Yeah, that's fine.
that's fine. Thank you very much.
That concludes item 16, page 17, 18, 19, and 20. Someone like to propose them? Councillor Locke proposed. Yeah. Seconded by Councillor Newton. All in favour, please show. And against? Abstentions?
26 for and 4 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, moving on to item 3, public contributions. We have no public contributions. So moving on to item 4, declarations of interest. Well, members with interest to declare should refer to the agenda item and describe the nature of their interest in the items being discussed. Item 5, agreement of agenda items part 1 and 2. There are no part 2 items. agenda item 6, consider correspondence put forward by the chair. I have nothing to put forward, Steve.
Nothing, Chair.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 7, the Ashwater Parish Neighbourhood Area Designation, which is pages 21 to 27. We have our planning policy team leader who's going to present.
Good evening, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members, officers and members of the public. So I will try and keep this brief and short for you this evening. The item in front of you, item 7, is the Ashwater Parish Council request for their area to be designated for neighbourhood planning purposes as a neighbourhood area. This follows their request on the 11th of July in writing to have that actioned. You can see the request in Appendix 1 in the report. And that application follows my attendance on request at their parish council meeting to discuss the potential for them to take forward neighbourhood planning in their area. We've reviewed their application and checked it against the required legislation, and it's considered to be a valid application, providing all of the required information. Given such, as a council, we are required to designate the area. We don't have any discretion in the matter. However, we need to bring that to yourselves at full council to have that ratified. The legislation requires that when it's seeking a designation of a whole civil parish and it's by a parish council, then the local planning authority must designate the neighbourhood area. Accordingly, the recommendation of paragraph 6.1 on page 25 of your report seeks the designation of the extent of the civil parish of Ashwater to be designated as a neighbourhood area for the purposes of neighbourhood planning. I'll leave it at that, Chair. Keep it nice and simple,
Thank you.
and I'll hand it back to you and happy to take any questions or any comments.
Councillor Locke.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fully supportive of this, but could you tell us how much we got there for the funds with any future applications?
So in terms of the fund, we don't get a direct fund to pass to the neighbourhood groups. They can apply through locality for a direct grant. And that's a standard basic grant is £10,000 per annum, or £10,000 in any given period. It's down to the neighbourhood group to fund any of the activity that they undertake. In terms of us as a local planning authority, we can then claw back an element of costs through a neighbourhood planning grant from MHCLG and central government, but that's just to cover our costs of referendums, oftentimes examination, etc. In terms of the actual preparation of the neighbourhood plan, that is a matter for the parish council concerns.
Thank you. Councillor Hackett.
Yes, I'd like to move this proposal. You'll see that I've made a comment here. This allows Ashwater to set its own priorities that are important to them and create the design for the parish going forward. And they feel that a little change in the planning system that is facilitated by this neighbourhood plan can make a big difference to their community. So I hope we can all support it. Thank you.
Looking for a seconder? Councillor Locke?
Yeah.
Well, if there's no other speakers, to take it to the vote. All in favour, please show. Could be unanimous because we can't do anything other than support it.
Yeah, that's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, agenda item 8, Joe Cox Stability Commission, which is pages 28 to 31. I believe the Chief Exec is going to report on this.
Excuse me, thanks, Chair. Very short report again. So I'm sure members will be aware from plenty of media coverage about the abuse and intimidation of political representatives, particularly in light of the recent general election and other elections. So you'll see attached to the report, the leader, Councillor James, and I have been contacted, asked whether Torridge would wish to support the Commission's work, and equally whether we wish to make a small contribution to the work. So, Chair, the recommendations are that members full council determine whether to support the work of the Joe Cox Civility Commission, and subject to doing so, whether you wish to make a small contribution to that work. And the suggestion in the report is somewhere between £500 and £1,000. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Hughes, did you have your?
Chair, thank you. I fully support this, and as a smaller council, I propose that we make a grant of £500.
Anyone else wish?
That's second.
Councillor Conlon, yeah.
Yeah, second that proposal.
Okay, here we are. It's been proposed and seconded that we first of all support this this initiative, and that we also contribute £500 to that fund. All in favour, please show.
That's 31 for and 1 abstention, because Councillor Haynes arrived me during.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9, appointment of town and parish representatives on the standards committee, which is pages 32 to 33. Stacey is going to present this.
Chair, so again, I'll keep this very brief. And we've been without a town or parish representative on standards committee for a significant period. Councillor Hugh Brady from Northern has put himself forward to sit on standards committee. He's been interviewed by myself and the chair of standards, Councillor Back, and the recommendation is that full council approve his appointment to sit on standards committee. Our constitution says for 4 years, but as Councillor Hodgson pointed out quite rightly, until the end of his term in 2027, and obviously if he's re-elected, then for the 4 years.
Okay, no discussion. I'll propose from the chair that we accept. Councillor Brady.
I'll second it.
All in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacey. Item 10 on your agenda, Local Authority Housing Fund, going 3 pages 34 to 64. Again, Stacey's going to present this one.
Mr. Chair, so we put forward for the latest local authority housing fund round 3 for 6 properties in total, 4 of which we can use straight away for our own temporary accommodation, and 2 of which must be resettlement properties. We've been awarded a total of £944,925 for this purpose. So at the moment, we don't have the full schemes designed, they'll come forward, but at the present, we're asking for approval to add that sum to our capital programme, and we'll come forward later on with some schemes for how we're going to deliver that. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Tinsley.
Yes, I mean, I think it sounds a very good idea. I just wondered if you had any idea what the actual cost would be, how much the council would have to put towards it.
So we don't know at this stage. The difference of this scheme from the other schemes is that we don't have to match fund. So if the 6 properties come forward within that cost bracket, then we don't have to pay any more funding. But when we've got the 6 schemes designed, we'll know the total cost and we'll be able to come back forward with them. But yeah, no match funding like we did with the previous schemes. Was we were given 40% and Troy had to match fund 60%. That was elements been taken away from this round.
Okay, well, sorry. Councillor Lavelle.
So, this is great, you know, well done and all the rest of it. Just, and I may be asking the question too soon, regarding the administration of the accommodation, because we've got problems, haven't we, with like the housing association. All Torridge's accommodation is currently administered by housing associations,
No,
they're
not
not.
this type of housing.
So
Not this kind of housing, okay. beg your
Yeah,
pardon,
so
right,
we
yeah.
administer this ourselves, so all of our, Torridge, property, for temporary accommodation, we
Like
administer
Surrey
that.
House and all that,
Yeah.
you do it yourself, beg your
Yeah.
pardon then, that's my ignorance, thank you.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Hobson.
I'd like to move the recommendation. It's an excellent programme. As you say, we've not got to provide the match funding, which is great. So I would like to move that we add this to the capital programme.
I totally agree. I'll second that from the chair. All in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 11, Devon Housing Commission report, pages 65 to 69, and Chief Executive is going to read this report.
Thanks, Chair. So quite a short report covering the Devon Housing Commission report, which isn't attached to this document. The link was enclosed. However, I know members were sent a full copy of the Housing Commission report in advance of the recent housing strategy workshop to give members some background reading before that workshop. Housing Task Force was set up probably about 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Councillor James, the leader of the council, is Torridge's representative on that task force. And part of the work of that task force was to set up the Housing Commission and task that commission with developing this detailed work. So that work was undertaken a significant amount of data analysis across the geographical Devon, with a secondment from Homes England and support from from academics at the University of Exeter. The report itself was launched some weeks ago, and there are a number of recommendations in that report for a multitude of organisations, so districts, county councils, Homes England, the government and other public bodies. So within the covering report, I've highlighted those particular recommendations that are directed towards local authorities, and you'll see I put in bold the areas of work that Torridge have done towards progressing those recommendations. Chair, I'm not going to go through the report itself in any more detail than that. The recommendations for council are to note the Devon Housing Commission report, note the progress on those recommendations that Torridge have already started work prior to the publication of the report, and consider, in light of the emerging the work on the Torridge housing strategy, those areas of recommendations that will be encapsulated in Torridge's housing strategy. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
As I say, this isn't for voting on, it's just for noting, but if there are any questions to Chief Executive, now is your opportunity. Councillor Thomas?
Chair, I know one of the recommendations relates to the development of the housing strategy. And I know, I think most members that, agree that the housing strategy that we're putting together is a very important piece of work. Quite a few members were at the recent workshop, but not all. And as I understand it, the next time we'll see our housing strategy is the beginning of November, when we'll be asked to vote on it. I'm just wondering, considering the importance of this document and considering the importance of this work, whether we shouldn't have some kind of working group in the meantime, maybe to meet sometime in October, just to look at what is being proposed for the housing strategy and how it ties into this.
Thank you.
Chair, as I said, the commission report was sent out to all members prior to that initial workshop that was which took place, and all members were invited to attend that workshop. Obviously, there was a lot of discussion at that workshop, and I know Councillor Hodgson and Ian, who's just left from the planning team, put together all the comments, statements and things raised at that workshop and circulated it to all members, with a view of all members being able then to submit any comments back to Councillor Hodgson if I'm correct, and Councillor Hodgson's nodding.
You want me to add a little bit?
Yeah,
Obviously, you all circulated the feedback from that workshop. I thought it was a really inclusive and very robust discussions were had there. I hear what Councillor Thomas is saying, but we've got to give, we direct the strategic, we direct the direction, sorry. We direct the strategy. We don't deliver the document that is for our qualified officers to contribute to. What we're looking at is using leadership, as you've seen, for briefing sessions on how we're progressing different things. And we have said that there will be at leadership, we have 2 more leadership meetings before November the 4th, when the strategy hopefully will be presented in draft form. And remember, it is in draft form, because it would then, if you agree it will go out to consultation. So there's still the opportunity for change. But at one of these briefing sessions, at leadership meeting, we will see how far they've progressed, and anybody can go, as you know, to those meetings and comment. So there will be further opportunity. If we start holding workshops and more ideas, you've all been invited on 2 occasions by me to contribute if you think there's something missing. I've had nothing from anyone. So, you know, please seize the moment, write to me, speak to me, phone me up. I'm not unapproachable. You've all got my telephone number. If you've got something you're really concerned about that you feel that we need to focus on, let me know. And I can do no more than that. I'm not responsible for writing the actual document. That's why we have qualified officers to deliver. Thank you.
Councillor Tinsley, first of all.
Yes, I would actually support what Councillor Thomas said. I do understand all the work that's gone in, and I read the housing, the Devon report, and I was really sorry that I couldn't attend the housing workshop that you held, but it was in the middle of the holiday season. And then I read very closely the notes that have come out of that workshop, and I spoke to my colleagues who did attend it. And what I don't have a handle on is the direction that we're going with this strategy. I can see that all the points were raised, a load of really good points. If I feed in individually, yeah, I might have a point to add, but we need to discuss between ourselves and really hammer out what direction we're going in. And that's a discussion that has to be had amongst us all, not all feeding in individually, because we haven't all got the whole picture. So I would really, and yeah, I think it's great if we can use the leadership meetings to see how that's progressing. But I would really ask if possible that, depending on what comes out of those leadership meetings, we should leave the door open to have another meeting to really deal with those really difficult questions to do with housing in this area. And we will have different perspectives, I'm sure, and we need to hammer out something that we can all support.
Thank you. Sharon, Councillor Codhook, maybe add your hand.
Yeah, it's something within the report, specifically about the Crescent, land at the Crescent in Langtree. So there is concern in the local community that this isn't an appropriate location, and I wasn't a ward member for the area when it was included in 2022. So I just wanted to highlight that. And they were only noting this today, but as a new ward member for that area, I know that there is a lot of concern within Langtree about that being included as a site.
Thank you. Councillor Newton.
Chair, thank you. I think that Councillor Tinsley, the point that you raised there, this is not a new strategy. councillor Cotler-Hunkin has just referred to, the fact we were having workshops back in 2022 on use of council land, and we whittled things down. So it goes further and wider than this administration. It's got to. It's a long-term piece of work. We've had consultants in, etc. So admittedly, there is an element of catch-up, if one says, for new members who've joined partway through the journey. But we can't go back and turn the wheel right back to the beginning every time, because there's a huge amount of work that's already been done, and we spent a lot of money on consultants, etc. already. I would say, yeah, one hears, but if we constantly going back, then we're just kicking the can down the road in a way. There will be the opportunity when I would imagine that the draft, in fact, we will see either at ONS or at CNR before it gets here. I'm asking a question, really. I don't know, I'm looking at the chief executive, but I would be surprised if the first time we see anything is for a decision of full council. There will be the opportunity to see all of this work that's been pulled together by our professional officers beforehand. So I hear your concern, but I'm afraid I'm not able to support it in that sense.
Chair, did you want us to come back on those bits? So there's two bits. Obviously, this report is about the Devon Housing Commission report, not about Torridge's council housing strategy. So that's the first point. The second point about the timing and where the report will go, I believe Councillor Hodgson circulated to all members the process that the housing strategy will take. So I believe it will be coming back to full council on the 4th of November for members to consider a draft strategy for going out to public and stakeholder consultation. At a later date, those consultation responses, plus any responses from all councillors, can be taken into consideration before a final strategy is adopted, which then will be, I can't remember the date, probably the January full council meeting for then implementation and working out a delivery plan. As Councillor Newton pointed out, there's many things that have already started, many things already taken place that the council are doing. The strategy is building on the work that's already ongoing and some of the other pieces of work that members are interested in taking forward. Chair.
So I got, yes, sorry, Councillor Thomas first of all.
Yeah, I just first of all like to reassure Councillor Hodgson and other members, I'm not suggesting that we as councillors write the document. I don't think we would have that skill. I wouldn't claim we do. And I know she's very approachable, but at the workshop we were at, the timetable that was put up was that we would have the workshop, a draft report would then be produced, to go to full council, beginning of November, to then go out to consultation. At that stage, we weren't told there would be any other opportunity for us to look at that document and to see what might be in it. I mean, if there's going to be briefings at leadership, if there's going to be a meeting where we can actually see what's going to be in it, that would be good. But we haven't been given any firm dates. And I just think we as a council, we don't want to be looking at a document one day to then put it out for public consultation the next day. Because if there are any issues with it, we're delaying the process. So even if just like 3 or 4 weeks beforehand, we can see what the draft strategy is, or an outline of the draft strategy, to see what we are proposing as a council, whether it's, doubling council tax on empty homes, whatever it is.
Councillor Piper, maybe you had your hand up.
Thank you very much, Chair. I made a note when I read the Devon Commission report and that I wanted to raise this issue tonight, but it probably looks like I'm making a point about our housing strategy. Maybe it's the wrong place to raise it, but I'm going to raise it nonetheless. And I'd also say that I realise that I should be raising it through our lead member for housing, which I will, and I haven't, and that's on my bad. for not being at the housing strategy because my diary didn't allow, but that's not a criticism. I can be sure of that. But one thing I feel has been missing in Torridge for some time as a council, and perhaps is somewhat missing in the report, is the potential for self-build. As I say, Torridge has not historically been prolific at utilising or understanding the power of self-builds, especially self-builds through CLTs. Despite some of our neighbours, such as Cornwall Council, being quite proactive with regards to self-build. I know that young people feel quite helpless at times when it comes to housing, young local people, despite them having the skills and quite often the energy to make a big difference through self-build. So I wanted to stand up on this agenda item and mention self-build, but I will also filter it through with the correct channels. But I wanted it to be in people's minds. Thank you, Chair.
We can answer that before I go on, Councillor Pennington, and hopefully that'll be the last one.
Thank you, Angie, I'm sorry you weren't there. I'm sorry you haven't in between times given me a call. I'm on the end of the phone. All these types of housing were discussed in depth and rigorously at the workshop. Self-build, key worker homes, CLTs, different types, different products of affordable housing, intermediate market sales, all sorts of things. So in the housing strategy, a housing strategy covers all those things and says the council considers different products for different requirements. So if you have a look at anybody's housing strategy, one was circulated with the documents, it actually lays out how many different types of housing the council will consider. So it's not, we haven't thought about it. It will be one of the aspects of sizing it up, as we did with looking at what we were going to do with the hostels and the affordable, the pods to meet our needs for homelessness. We will look at what else we need to do. We know there's a major issue about young nurses, carers, newly qualified teachers not being able to get into the housing market. So we need to be looking seriously at what products we can offer to help them get onto the housing ladder. So these are the directions a housing strategy will lay out as options. This is not the service delivery document. That's the next bit. So we look at the strategy and we say, what can we do? What have we got the funding for? So that will be the next stage. So that's really key. And that's when we need to drive home what is a priority for our areas. Does that help?
I think yeah, absolutely, sounds absolutely great. But I'm also, sorry, Chair, I'm just also looking at the content of the report, and the fact that self-builds not mentioning some quite prescriptive things that Torridge are doing, and I'm also yeah, I am, and so I'm commenting on that. It's not a criticism of you there. I think there's a tiny degree of over defensiveness. You know, it's an open forum and an ability to raise something that will stick in people's head. And as Councillor Newton rightly pointed out, in some ways, you know, this is an ongoing thing from experience. And having lived and worked in Torridge all my life, I'm aware of where Torridge has sometimes been behind the curve in exactly those innovative thinkings that you were talking about. I've got a lot of faith in everything you're talking about, but we can all still make our point.
Yeah, I'm not disputing you can make your point, but I think we are here, the report is about the Housing Commission report. That doesn't encompass and embrace all our ambitions. This is something separate that we're commenting on to say this is how far we've gone towards meeting those things.
Yep.
The housing strategy obviously is a separate thing. The date probably for the leadership meeting,
15th of October.
15th of October, so put it in your diaries, please.
Before I come on to Mr. Pennington as our next speaker, I mean, from a personal point of view, I think we're extremely fortunate that we've got a lead member as passionate about housing as Councillor Hodgson. She really does put her heart and soul in that. And you can tell by the detail that what she talks about, that she really knows her subject. So thank you for that, Councillor Pennington.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank Councillor Hodgson for the meeting that she arranged and a very valuable meeting that was had. So excellent. And thank you, Ian. Ian's left now, I think, as well, and the staff members there. I'm just a little concerned picking up that it's the role of what members do and what officers do. And I think it's for us to set directions. And when I talk to different people around the council, there is different views how we should approach housing. And when it comes to a strategy, we as members should set the direction and then officers implement what we decide. We need the officers to support us. And I pick up Councillor Thomas's point of view that we need to be having more input to set that direction.
Correct.
Do we want more affordable housing, or do we want to have a housing market that's going to be letting a rip? Do we address the issues of Airbnb, or do we not address the issues? Are we more campaigning with our government in issues that are facing our economy? And one of the start things that came up, not at the meeting with you, Councillor Hodgson, but when we had the joint planning framework, which I was really glad we had actually, which we discussed, was the ratio of earnings to house prices. And we have to address that basic issue. We have the worst, I think, nearly in the country. So we have to, as members, set the direction.
Councillor Dart, you had your hand up next.
Thank you, Chair. Just note in the report that we still haven't got a strategic, a housing enabling officer. And it's got to be over a year. So, are we any close to finding someone who can act as a point of contact for our parish councils? Because they really need help in taking local housing forward. You know, we're discussing what we can do, but actually that's a real key point of contact. And I've got to say, I assumed it had been filled because it's been going on for so long. So can we have an update on that, please?
It hasn't gone on without trying. I think we've gone out and tried to recruit to that post a number of times. And it's one of those more challenging posts to fill. We are looking at some other options. It would be unfair of me just to set out the detail of that this evening because we haven't concluded what that internal option might be. But as I said, it's something we're continually and actively working on. But like many authorities, there are some posts which are extremely difficult to fill, and unfortunately, this is one. We, as a management team, we recognise the importance of doing that, getting that post filled. We thought we'd reached a conclusion at the last recruitment process, only for the individual to pull out at the last minute, unfortunately.
Okay, right. So we just note that report. Thank you, Councillor. Moving on to item 12, Torridge Corporate Peer Challenge, pages 70 to 85. And the executive is going to present that report.
Thanks, Chair. So you'll note this is a report from both the leader and myself. So I'll start, and Councillor James may have a few points to add at the end. So members will recall at your last full council meeting in July, we went through the peer challenge report in some detail. We had a lengthy discussion and debate about the content of the peer report. So I'm not going to go back over that again. The consequence of that, the outcome of that council meeting was that it delegated to myself, working with the political group leaders, to look at the recommendations and draw up a draft action plan for members to consider how we'll implement and deliver upon those recommendations. So that draft action plan is appended to the report. Stacey and myself met with the group leaders on 2 occasions, at the beginning of August and lately at the end of August. And in the second meeting, We had representatives from the Local Government Association, Catherine Trant, who led from the LGA perspective in taking forward the process, and Paul Clark, our regional local principal advisor. So you'll see those that action plan attached. Some of the recommendations, some of that plan's already been implemented. Again, some of those things were already in progress prior to the peer challenge process taking place. Chair, so the recommendations in the report, before I hand over to the leader, are to approve the peer challenge action list as attached, and that the group leaders are those appointed to comprise the working group to implement the actions on member development and reviewing the constitution where necessary. And note the progress on implementing some of the actions will be reported to full council around November of this year and January 25, in advance of the corporate peer challenge team coming back to review our progress in delivering those actions. Chair, I'm not sure whether the leader, Councillor James, wants to add anything.
Anyway, right, we have had a very good, we've had 2 meetings with group leaders. I'd like to thank Councillor Newton for the ones we've been looking at is in his realm. He's going with solid leadership on those. We've got a lot of work to do. And I think Councillor would agree that we're working quite well to where we need to get to. So I would thank the other group leaders that have joined in and worked with us. And that's about it really. We will keep you updated on the progress. As Steve said, some of the stuff we're already doing. Have 1 or 2 issues with what the peer review come up with, but that's another argument. But I think it's going how it should do. We've got solid support from Clark and Catherine Trant. And so that's all I really wanted to say, and just to approve the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, you've got a proposal.
I'm proposing that we.
Councillor Newton, you want to second that?
I can
Would
second
you?
it.
Yeah.
Can I just, say something very quickly there?
Sure.
That may help certain members, and that is that acting on one of the recommendations or the observations, the leader has already instigated dedicated member briefings on certain policy subjects that are working through the system. And we already have a date for where we're going to be briefed on 2 subjects. No more than that. So we can concentrate just on 2 of things which are work in progress. And we will be updated on those. So there will be more dedicated options. And these are the member briefings that the leader has just introduced. And that type of thing will be coming through, working through it. So we're already seeing some of it. I'll happily second that.
Okay. Councillor Haynes?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, if I missed something. Have we included the overseeing of delivery of service plans in terms of the carbon reductions of this council? I thought that was part of the peer review. Is it in this plan? I can't see it.
Sorry.
Well, I think that's later on our programme, Councillor Haynes, under for you to deal with. So we're dealing with what we need to deal with at the start. So
part of the action plan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously,
we haven't got to all of it yet.
Oh, I thought we.
And you're on the group leaders group, so you'll get your say in what we do with it.
Got the impression we were being presented with the whole action plan. You're saying it's going.
Yeah.
I think Councillor Haynes was suggesting that he thought this document was a completed document, but it's very much work in progress.
It's purely listing what we need to do and which lead members and which officers will be involved in devolving that and working through it. And so if you go to your section, you'll see that
it's in here,
your name is against some of it.
It is definitely here. Sorry, I can't.
Okay, it's on page 82.
Okay. Sorry, I
private actions.
Thank you.
Councillor Ford, have you got your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, obviously, I'm not necessarily happy and I ain't gonna be supporting this anyway, because even if it's work in progress, this ain't going far enough. And because of sub judice at the moment involving a complaint I'll put in involving this council, that's all I can say, but this ain't touching the sides anyway. Thank you, and I want that noted.
Thank you. Councillor Pennington.
Chair, page 81, thank you. Member, working group. There's only 5 political groups. Have we banned the Labour Party or something? Because we've got 6 groups. We've got the Conservatives, Independent, Lib Dems, Greens, non-aligned, and one other, Labour. And we only mentioned the 5 there in the right-hand column. 5 political groups. Who have you dropped off the list? I would be interested to find out. Thank you.
Chair, I think that's just a typing error. It needs to be, it's not all political groups are involved.
An omission can be as bad as an inaccuracy.
Well, you've just heard that all, you can be assured that all political groups will be involved in the preparation of this document. So it's being proposed by Councillor James, seconded by Councillor Councillor Newton, beg your pardon. So all in favour, please show.
With the amendment to 6, Chair.
And against?
Please no, only 4 against.
Any abstentions?
It's 31 for and 1 against.
Thank you. Okay, item 13 is changes to the contract procedural rules, pages 86 to 89, and section 151, Officer Gordon Bryan will present them. Okay, Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. So item 13 picks up upon certain changes that have been recommended from the Social Value Task Force and have recently been agreed upon by the Audit and Governance Committee. It essentially splits into 2 areas. The contracts and procedure rules have been updated for the work of the Social Value Task Force to make sure that social value is built into the tendering process. And the second stage is about ensuring that the references to waivers within contracts and procedure rules reflects what's in the financial procedure rules also. It's merely a reflection of the existing position. That's all, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments?
Happy to move, Chair. I'll be just a second, Chair.
Okay, all in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chair.
I have to have you on the podium a bit more often. Okay, item 14 on your agenda is the appointment of Vice Chair of Internal Review and Scrutiny, pages 90 to 91.
That's just you.
Thanks, Chair,
Already
that's
there.
really clever for me to add, apart from we have a vacancy at, of the Vice Chair for Internal Review and Scrutiny, and it's for full council to appoint to that position.
Councillor James?
I'm happy to propose that Councillor Hodson takes that seat. She's recently needed to come off CNR for various reasons. And I think she will make a solid contribution to that committee.
Councillor Cobblepot?
Yeah, I'd be very happy to second that. Thank you.
Yes, been proposed and seconded. All in favour, please show. Against? Any abstentions?
Chair's 31 for and 1 against.
Thank you. Okay, item 15 is to answer questions submitted under procedural rule A9. We have two questions. The first one, I believe, is from Mr. Thomas. So it's been circulated. You have it in front of you, you can see the answer,
Yeah, I'd like to ask a supplementary, please, Chair,
please.
which is, the following the Environment Agency reclassification. How much has the Clevewood land owned by Torridge decreased in value? And in terms of the number of houses that could be built upon it, assuming the classification is not challenged?
I think that answer will have to follow when that's been looked
Yeah.
into, because
Written
anyone's
answer,
got the answer now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can share that.
Okay, the second and nine questions from councillor Pennington. Again, it's been circulated with the question and the answer.
Chair, may I make a comment rather than a question, supplementary question? Thank you, Stacey, for your response. Earlier in the year, I had a call from somebody, son who lived
Point
at.
of order, please.
Councillor Lynch?
I don't think that is allowed. I would question that, please.
Then let me overcome the situation by asking in the form of a question.
Okay.
Okay, so I overcome the question. If the council is faced with an elderly woman who has been respectably working all her life to keep her money going, keep her home going, and is very proud, and is one of the probably 800 pension credit people who could be claiming pension credit and does not, and then would be entitled to council tax support, how would our officers deal with that situation when they suddenly find they're not paying their council tax? That's my supplementary question, and I apologise to councillor Inch and he's correct to pull me up, but I will ask it in the form of a question.
Thank you.
So that's my question, Chair.
You will receive an appropriately worded document, I'm sure.
I'm sure I will. Thank you, Stacey, for your answer.
Okay, moving on to item 16, we have no petitions. Item 17, notice of motion. We have one notice of motion from Councillor Thomas, I believe.
Yeah, sorry, be back again. First of all, Chair, I'd just like to ask for a recorded vote on this motion. I have forgotten on a couple of times in the past.
I'll second that, Chair.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't got that far yet.
All right.
I put together this motion, I was speaking with other members about the way that we as a council work together, use the skills of all members, and crucially make sure everyone knows what's happening and how they can contribute to it. I think it's fair to say a number of councillors have felt they've been left out of the loop on how policies are being developed and what actions are being taken by this council. There's also some concern that we as members have maybe become over-reliant on the skills of our officers, relying on them not just to advise us, but also to develop our policy. And I know our officers do a vital job. I don't underestimate what they do. And I'm sure our lead members also work extremely hard. But the clue's in the name. They're lead members. That doesn't mean we should rely on them or our officers to do everything for us. We're elected, every member, to represent the people of Torridge and to play our part in helping this council work for the benefit of its residents. And I'd just like to quote briefly from the LGA, their definition of the role of a district councillor, which states councils need clear strategies and policies to enable them to achieve their vision for the area, making the best use of resources and deliver services that meet the needs of local communities. As a councillor, you will contribute to the development of these policies and strategies, bringing the views and priorities of your local area to the debate. So I'd like to submit this motion you have in front of me, in front of you, saying basically it's fundamental to democracy of Torridge District Council that all elected members are involved in preparing important strategies, such as the joint planning policy and the housing strategy. And in order to make the most of the talent and knowledge of all councillors, it's proposed that the following improvements to working practice are adopted whenever new policy is being developed, which is one, a clear timetable of meetings and workshops is in place at the outset to enable all members to know when and how they can make contributions. If it's decided that in the interest of efficiency, any such meetings or working groups are not to be open to all councillors, their membership includes fair political representation of all groups by proportionality. When a meeting takes place, a record is agreed by the leader and any lead members involved, and that record is sent to all councillors forthwith. And finally, number 4, workshops involving discussions in small groups include a feedback session, organised separately if necessary, where the outcome of those discussions are shared and further developed among all members.
I'm going to give you a thing. Recorded vote. Yeah. We'll go for the vote first. Recorded vote first.
Yeah, but
So I've asked for recorded vote.
Yeah,
He proposed, I'm seconding
I'm
it.
just getting to that. Yeah. It's been proposed,
I'll
seconded
second
by councillor Ford. And then there needs
Well, you need to be 5,
there
correct?
needs to be another 5 then, 4
Yeah.
or 5.
5 in total.
5 in total.
Yeah, come on, you're the chair, you ought to know, mate.
You clearly got 6, 7, 8, whatever. Okay, so it's going to be a recorded vote. So you've heard what councillor Thomas's notice of motion is. All those in support of that motion, please show.
Recorded vote.
Recorded vote then, please show.
Councillor Andrews.
Can we make any comment?
No, you've had the proposal for a recorded vote. So hands up, all those in support of a recorded vote. Yeah, but don't we have to vote on that? Right, so now we've got to vote on the motion. Because it's recorded, I've got, all right, the penny's dropped.
Councillor Andrews.
Carry on.
How do you vote? 4. Councillor Bright.
4.
Councillor Bushby.
Against?
Councillor Cotter-Hunkin.
4.
Councillor Craigie. 4. Councillor Dart.
4.
Councillor Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Ford.
4.
Councillor Gibson.
Against.
Councillor Gubb.
Against.
Councillor Hackett.
Against.
Councillor Hames.
4.
Councillor Harding.
Against.
Councillor Hawkins.
4.
Councillor Heppel.
Against.
Councillor Hicks.
Against.
Councillor Hodgson.
Against.
Councillor Inch.
Against.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Johns.
4.
Councillor Leather.
Against.
Councillor Lavelle.
4.
Councillor Locke.
Against.
Councillor Newton.
Against.
Councillor Pennington.
4.
Councillor Piper.
4.
Councillor Shepherd.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Thomas.
4.
Councillor Tinsley.
4.
Councillor Wheatley.
4.
Councillor Whitaker.
4.
It's a Conservative Independent Alliance.
Right, well, clearly what's going to happen now is their report will have to be brought back to full council.
17, 4 and 15 against.
As I said, a report will be brought back to full council. Attention, please. Excuse me.
Sorry, Chair, so we're going to have to bring something back to full council because the council probably has somewhere between 50 and 100 strategies. So if we're going to set up working groups and meetings and record meetings of every strategy, because they're all important, every strategy the council has is important, then we're going to have to consider the implications of that decision because it's going to take a considerable amount of time to work through those strategies with every member involved in the production of all of them.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. I mean, it's clearly, you know, that's greatly going to increase the workload, and I would suggest it's going to slow down a lot of other things in the meantime, because you know, we only have a limited amount of staff resource to be able to produce all these documents. A vote is a vote. Okay, that draws us to the end of the